Hi there! I'm going to show you how to clear your floats using pseudo classes and some simple CSS. Here we have a few columns in a container called column container. You can see in the CSS that the column container is supposed to have a background, but we don't see it. We don't see the background because these columns are floating. Floating an element allows text and other elements to flow around it, but also stops the floated element from affecting the height of its parent. So our column container background doesn't display, essentially because column container has no height. If I remove the float property from our columns, you can see that the gray background shows up because these columns now have an impact on the height of their parent, the column container. So first I'll show you the basic way to clear a float that you may have learned in Web Essentials. Then I will show you a cleaner way that uses less HTML. So under all of our floated elements, I'm going to add a div that has a class of clear. Right here in our CSS, I've given clear the property clear and set that to both. This tells the browser that I don't want the clear element to flow around any other floated elements, but to be pushed past them. So if I give this a height and a background color, you can see where our clear div ends up being. Essentially, even though we don't see our empty clear div, it is in the flow of our document, giving the column container a height. So instead of using an extra div in our HTML, I'm going to remove that and we're going to work with the CSS hack instead. Below, I have some CSS for a class called Clearfix, followed by a pseudo class of after. This selector tells the browser to look for an element with the Clearfix class and apply these styles after it. Using the content property, we're essentially going to make a pseudo element on our page after our Clearfix div once we apply it. Next, we'll add display table. By default, any pseudo elements we try to create with CSS will not display unless we use display block or display table. Display table works on all modern browsers in this case to create an element that will successfully clear floats. And last, we have our clear both rule, which, like before, is what actually clears the floats. So we'll apply Clearfix to our column container. You can add multiple classes to an element by adding spaces in between them, and you can actually add as many classes as you want to one element. So when we apply Clearfix as our class on our column container, it then inserts our pseudo element after our column container and performs the same function as the empty clearing div we added before, but with less HTML to worry about. You can apply this Clearfix to multiple elements on a page as needed, so the style is completely reusable throughout your website. So there you have it, a quick and simple way to clear floats on your page. If you have any questions, please contact your instructor.